I've been hearing storms down by the shore. Pirates in the port of paradise. Hey, ruined mariners marinated, swinging one north with their heads big or sore. Viscera and gore in paradise. Pirates in the bay, taking what they may. Yarn and gold aboard, what decorates indoors. Taking home decor. Please not a word more. It's the Pirates of Paradise. Ah! Ah!
All right, so we're talking about caffeine pills.
Oh yeah, so I did buy some caffeine pills recently, and
Uncut cocaine.
Wired on them. Like the other day, I got up at about. My eyes were open at 5. Well, I went to bed at like 1. My eyes were open at 5:50. I started moving at 6. I went to jujitsu. I was there from 10. I was there from like 9:40 to like 10:40. Then I left. Then I hung out with my cousin for an hour. Then I came back. I did laundry. Then I went to work at like 4:30, and I was at work from 4:30 to like 9:30. I remember thinking like, I'm not even like a little crashy, right? And I was like, oh, it's those drugs. It's those drugs.
But then when you got home, did you feel the crash?
Oh, I definitely.
I guess like what dosage were you on for that?
I think I took about. At that point, I was about like 800 milligrams deep. But
Oh no, I've gone up to 1,000. 800 is standard for me. But like,
okay.
if I go above like a gram of caffeine, like,
oh no,
I mean that's 1,000 milligrams. It's whatever. It's 5 pills. There's like 98 in a bottle or some shit. Maybe 36. I think it's 36. No, there's 100 tablets in a bottle, and I usually get like the 3-pack for like $20.
Oh, okay.
Oh my god, people who don't think caffeine is a drug, like they don't.
I was just looking for a stimulant that was. I was looking for a harder stimulant than tea.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't want to get into coffee again, and I was like, this is a nice middleman.
Why didn't you want to get into coffee again? Just the preparation, or like?
Oh, it's just like sort of
Taste?
kinda. I mean, coffee makes me like nauseous and kind of shaky, and
That's fair.
Yeah,
makes me sweaty.
And like, I feel like there's research I could do. So like, because I imagine I could like, if I bought the right coffee and prepared it in the right way, I could eliminate that problem. But that's like a lot of research to do, and I could just buy a pill.
I don't think that's the case.
I'm not sure.
Think that, I'm pretty sure like most of the shakiness is like, I mean, it just has to do with like the caffeine release within your body. So like, if you drink it on an empty stomach, yeah, it's gonna make you like whatever. But also, I'm sure some of it's just like caffeine tolerance. So
this is well, because I used to be like during sophomore year, like during my sophomore/junior years of high school, I was like really into coffee. Actually, yeah, it was like late freshman, sophomore year, and then early junior year. I was like really, really into coffee, and then at some point, like I couldn't do it. Like I would get nauseous and shaky. But so it also varies, but like from coffee to coffee, because I still do it like every once in a while. Like typically, I can't do a store-bought coffee, but Panera coffee used to be fine for me. Anyway.
Oh, Panera coffee's dog shit, piss water.
It is piss. Like it's not great, but I don't
like.
You see,
like I have to make it into like a dairy drink, like where I pour like just like a cup of half and half into it, like to get calories and 2 to make it taste not garbage, but whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's free, so I don't mind.
Oh yeah. But so far, I was gonna say though, mostly I've had a good time with these caffeine pills. I've been very productive, but I have been awake for the periods of time I need to be awake.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll probably do a 2-fer before I bounce for school again. But yeah, what have you been up to?
Oh, for sure, the caffeine pills like heighten my anxiety in a major way. Like not in every instance, but it's just like if I'm taking a test or something, I'm like really aware. Like instead of being really aware of the test and like really speedy about the test, I'm aware of like everybody else taking it and like how they're doing, like how quickly they're taking it, and also like my only example of this is like my most recent test. But I didn't have my like mechanical pencil, and so I was using a dog shit doo doo like old school pencil.
Right? You don't like regular ass pencils?
Not if they're not sharp, and also
Oh,
just
this is true.
no in general because I don't own a sharpener, and sharpeners always break / don't work.
Okay.
Like I'm sure there's something with like pencil brand, sharpener brand, but like I don't mind it. I don't mind it on paper. But I prefer like the precision of either a pen or a mechanical pencil for sure. Because I have sloppy ass handwriting.
I think I like normal pencils for the purposes of drawing.
Yeah, me
Generally
too.
speaking, when it comes to writing, I'm a pen dude. Even like just because I feel like I think I forget exactly when I made the decision, but it was a while ago, and it was like, I have confidence in myself to articulate myself properly
Also,
the first time.
the eraser on this particular pencil was one of those dog shit like recycled erasers. I'm like, yo, I don't give a fuck about the environment. I'm gonna die. Like,
I gotta erase my
what
marks.
am I doing here? I gotta erase my marks without having like a pile of sawdust
Oh, exactly. Or like
afterwards.
those black smudges that just ruin your shit. Those are
Oh
terrible.
yeah, and it had both of those.
Like bad erasers are the worst things on the planet.
Yeah.
Not yeah, that's an overstatement in a
Germany.
within the academic sphere, within the specific sphere of academic paraphernalia and the problems associated with academic paraphernalia, shitty erasers are up there.
Yeah, shitty erasers are definitely up there. I don't know what else would be up there for as in terms of like
I don't like
issues
wide rule
with
paper. I
what
think wide rule paper. Why?
yeah.
It's like it makes me feel like, what am I in kindergarten? Like, you don't trust me? Like,
Yeah. But I think it is funny if you buy college rule just because you're like, I'm a college kid. Yeah.
it's just my philosophy was always like, it's just more lines. Like, it's more lines.
Yeah, that's fair.
And yeah, and I don't know. I feel like wide ruled looks a little doofy. You know what I mean? Like, there was a hot second when like I refused to write on wide rule paper. like if I sometimes when I was in like a study skills type class, they would sometimes like hand out paper and the paper would be wide ruled and I'd be like, I'm fine, thank you. Which I feel like it's definitely an affectation of sorts, but like.
Oh, I also definitely skated by in high school because like there was no point where I ever had to go to like a study hall like type thing. People just assumed, oh, he has glasses. He knows words.
Mm-hmm. Like in a mandatory sort of way.
Yeah, like I never had to go to any of those study skills classes, but I probably could have used it.
They're all right.
But like I don't know, it was always weird because like I think my placement was always like below where I could have been for most classes, but it was because I didn't like the teacher in like the previous year, and so I didn't respect them enough to do their work. I was like, what do you think? I'm some kind of dummy dumb? I just don't give a fuck about baskets of oranges. I'm not trying to be a middle manager, you know?
Oh yeah, exactly. Like my lack of interest of school, like in school, has always like led to me having terrible time management when it comes to school things. And like I was talking to my mom about this the other day that like those study skills classes, because I've been in like not like a bunch of them, but in more than one, I suppose. And those study skills classes, if you don't have solid time management skills or organizational skills, definitely they'll help you pick them up. However, like I was I don't know, like I was ashamed of the concept of asking those people to assist me with doing anything because that's for dummy dumb.
Oh yeah, and also I feel like most of them are like, I don't know. Like I
Like
remember.
I don't like if there's such a fine line for me between being helped and being talked down to that like it's
Oh
really
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
defusing a bomb sometimes.
I'd agree.
Like,
I'd agree with that.
oh, and it's definitely like a lot of it's on me. It's just because I'm like kind of unstable temperamentally, and so people like someone will be like, "Oh no, it's just this right here." I'll be like, "I fucking know. Like I'm not a fool. Like I know."
Yeah.
Yeah, but like I definitely I don't know. I definitely a skill I do not have is the ability to manage my time when I don't care about what is taking up my time.
Oh yeah, like the people who don't spend time thinking about like like the people who aren't caught up in an existential crisis, what are you doing with your life?
Like give me the example of
like
someone who
like the
would be
people who like don't think about death at all. Like they don't think about like the ways in which they could die, or like I don't know, like
oh if you're like oh yeah if you never like or like if you're not like the other day I was thinking about like oh if you do something every day it's most of your life everything like most of your life are the things you do every day you really gotta I was thinking like ooh how many days like how many minutes have I lost every day that are gonna like add up to years by the end of it like those sorts of things like if you're just not aware of I don't know like the your aspects of being alive you mean
yeah. I think a lot of the people who are like, I want to help kids, whatever, are definitely people who like were fuck ups in school, and they're like, maybe I can help other people not be fuck ups.
well I don't know like I'm not sure but I think that career like that explanation for that that explanation for that career path is sort of kind of admirable like maybe misguided but like I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, for sure,
You
for
get
sure.
bonus points for your heart being in the right place. I think you do sometimes, but generally speaking, you don't.
Yeah,
Are you making coffee?
yeah.
Oh, okay. I
Was
was
it
just gonna
the
say. I was
bubbling
like,
sound?
Oh yeah, I know. I was assuming it was your coffee maker, but I was like, what if it's not?
What if it's not? What if it's
What if it's coffee maker simulator?
What if it's coffee maker simulator? Yeah, I'm just making.
You just like your phone. You've got your phone attached to your speakers, just making coffee sound.
Hey, it suits me. It's how I get to sleep, and it's how I wake up.
Oh yeah, no, you're trying to gaslight me and our listeners.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I don't know. I'm trying to think of interesting things that have happened. I got a package from my mom recently. Apparently, it's got a bunch of apples, including one that this orchard hasn't named yet.
Wait. Is it like a CSA
Say that again?
program or something like a community supported agriculture thing, or is it like? Because I was reading into that stuff yesterday. Because like my uncle does like ag economic extension work for like the University of Kentucky, and so his whole thing is trying to get people to buy food from like local farmers and stuff via like farmers markets and like subscription services. But it's weird because he has a very convoluted way of doing it. Like the program he engineered is like, well, you buy like it's basically like a timeshare, but like a market share of the productive output of these farms. And like realistically, I looked into it a little bit, and there does seem to be some sort of like apps that you can use, and that some farmers do use. But
To like
the best idea is to have like a local farmers association that like shares machinery to cut down costs, and like. And this isn't from like any research I've done. This is just my like intuition. Is like, hey, if you have a fucking the thing that can till a field and you're not using it most of the time, let other farmers fucking use it, and then just like chip in on like upkeep costs for it. And then like you could just have like a network of like, because like that it is way more effective to have like a better bargaining unit than being an individual farm. because the bargaining power of like grocery stores is particularly high. So the idea is just that you can have like cheap access to fruits and vegetables for like like poor people or whatever.
So like you're saying that via sharing tools and like communicating, co-working in like a more intricate way could allow farmers like themselves like independently to compete with like the grocery store competition, as it were.
Oh yeah, if you just cut out like the profit-making middleman, like another person who has to rent a building and do a whatever, like hire a bunch of employees. If you can cut out all that cost and just sell direct to consumer, it's way cheaper and you get more profit. But like the idea of a supermarket is not a term for the consumer, it's a term for the manufacturers, because like they're saying we have a market locked down because we've branded ourselves as a grocery store.
Yeah.
Like people know the name of our building and what's inside of it. So they come here to get food, which is so foreign to me. Or, I mean, it's not foreign because I worked at one, but like
That's the world we live in.
Like you're part of the supermarket. You're part of the supermarket.
Oh,
but
no,
they're like a supermarket aggregator.
That's such an interesting like artificial place, right? Like I was recently introduced to the concept of like an affordance, right? And so the idea is that when you observe something in your environment, like when you observe like an object essentially in your environment, that it affords, based on like the things you are capable of, the knowledge you have, et cetera, it affords like different animals different opportunities, right? So like fire affords heat and light, but also affords burning, right? Like water affords drinking, but also affords drowning, right? It's weird to create like an artificial place. And like the idea is that like, oh no, this place affords everything hypothetically. Like it's an interesting way to attempt to lock down a market psychologically, to make a place with everything, to eliminate the need for other places. But I do like related to that and what you said previously, I do think that would be interesting. Like the idea of like not like I was gonna say farmers market, not like a farmers market in the predetermined sense though, like a farmer's.
Oh no, it's like a subscription services are what he was like dealing with. But he was doing it in Amazon, he was doing it in a strange way, because you pay like $500 or something for like one share of this farm's output. But like that looks like you get like a box with, I have no idea, but it looks like the actual delivery, what you're getting is like 4 ears of corn and 4 tomatoes or some shit.
Yeah, you see, that seems like
I was like, no, fuck that.
Well, but if there was some kind of negotiable price where you as an individual could work with a network of farmers to, on like a bi-weekly, monthly basis, whatever, have like fresh food, like fresh crops, et cetera, like the fresh yields of agricultural labor, like delivered to your home, I think that would be baller. It'd be like
direct to consumer would be great if they just owned the market.
It'd be like
or whatever.
A farmer's market platform. You know what I mean? Like
like something that had like an Instacart or like a Grubhub style delivery service where you pay somebody like a flat rate or whatever to just drive between the two places, or like. If you really want to own the delivery service, you could have one of the farmers or like one of the farmers' kids or whatever do that.
Exactly, yeah. Like every farmer has extra bodies.
Yeah. Like direct to consumer farm shit is not difficult. Like you just
rent a U-Haul if you have to. Go around.
Yeah, exactly. Just be like, hey, listen, you can buy like 3 heads of lettuce for like $1 or some shit.
Dude, you want 300 heads of lettuce? That would probably be really advantageous for. I bet that would be really advantageous for like up and coming restaurants. I think this concept with this like the implementation of a concept at least sort of like this, you could make like the idea of farm to table kind of ubiquitous. Like, oh no, we just get our food from fucking farms. Like we get it right from the farm people. Like that's It makes the most sense. Our supply chain is so simple.
Oh yeah, and then also, I mean, most restaurants kind of do that anyway. Like that's like most produce is local.
Oh yeah, but like
just because
in the
it's
same way
difficult
that
as fuck to get cucumbers from Mexico to Pennsylvania or some shit
this is
without
true.
them
This is
rotting. Like you have to take a
yeah,
plane about it,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you
yeah,
have
and
to
that
pay for the plane.
yeah, and that's a lot. But I don't know. I was gonna say, how different do you think? Like, what do you think would differentiate that concept? Like in the same way that like the crowning achievement of like the dude who stole McDonald's from the original McDonald's dude and then made McDonald's what it is today, right? Like his crowning achievement is like essentially connecting, like it's connecting the supply chain and then connecting that supply chain to the customer at multiple franchises in an efficient way. Like, do you think that you're essentially, yeah, you're like, so you're saying like that network, except like the producers, like those who create the original agricultural labor are yielding the benefit and communicating directly with the customer.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Oh no, my papers.
But
Fuck.
like, that's the reason why you need like an association is because the output of farms is so variable that you sort of need like. I mean, I'm not that well versed on like the subsidies and benefits given to farms because I know they're
Yeah.
like pretty massive because the government like understands two things like food and energy need to be stable or nobody's gonna like people will overthrow the government.
Yeah.
Like if people can't eat and people can't go anywhere, people will fucking tear shit up.
Oh no, they will. They will.
Also,
Also, like, oh, I was
yeah.
gonna say also to a certain extent, like it might be like less governmental and more media based, but like if people are bored, generally speaking, like humans who aren't content will make problems.
Yeah, but like if you can't feed your kids
Oh no,
and you
I'm
can't
saying,
drive to work to feed your kids, you gotta kill somebody.
oh yeah. No, but I'm saying yeah. Generally speaking, people will do that if dissatisfied. People are capable of doing
Yeah, and if your neighbors can't feed their kids and your neighbors' can't feed their kids, like that shit's big. Like
it. Definitely.
that's why we have like food bank programs and shit, because if you can't feed your kids, then shit's gonna go south.
Oh, this is true. This is true. What's that? I think the biblical analogy for like a government that is not capable of affording its citizens all the things that a government should is like I think like in the Bible they always talk about like, oh dude, this government forgetting about its widows and orphans. You know what I mean? Like the inability of the governing structure to support even like the lowest rungs of society, and therefore like anyone at all.
This is something we could talk about. There's definitely some parts of the Bible that have been like speculated on as being just like because it's a document that's been like compiled over such a long period of time.
Yeah.
You can kind of see the infiltration of like the Roman Empire, and a lot of the philosophy is basically like a non-competition clause between like Judaism and like the Roman state. And so there's some speculation that a lot of it was like basically like Roman co-option of like local religions to create like subservient people. So it's basically like rank propaganda to be like, oh no, it's cool. It doesn't matter how we treat you in this life because God will provide for you in the next or some shit. Like just be like, oh no, don't worry about it. Kids are dead? Yeah, don't worry about it.
I don't know. Superficially, I don't know how I feel about that idea. I do like, well, in that, well, I'm not exactly familiar with that interpretation, but this is
The meek will inherit the earth type shit. Or like give unto Caesar. Like give unto Caesar what is Caesar's or whatever, but yeah, just be like pay your taxes and whatever. Don't fight the Romans or some shit.
I don't know. Well, I think that I was actually just going to mention this. I think that I think that
because Christianity, right, is just Reformed Judaism, and it reformed because the Jews were they were like, oh, dude, we're God's chosen people. If somebody fucks with us, God will fucking smite them, and if He doesn't, it's because we're not living our lives right.
Mm-hmm.
But like they were getting smoked so much and so frequently that they were like, oh, dog, I guess God just wants us to fucking be Romans or some shit. And then they just co-opted that.
I was gonna say I once heard I forget, I think it was when he was on Joe Rogan. I heard Brian Callen tout Christianity, not like tout, but like he mentioned that Christianity was likely that like if that the hypothetical like historical Rabbi Jesus of Nazareth, that his crowning achievement would be making a version of Judaism that is much less complicated and therefore simpler to follow on the whole.
Oh, that's just not true. Because God, or not God, but like Jesus has a thing where he goes like, I did not come to like remove the laws. I came to add to them. So he's like, I didn't come here to break tradition. I just came to add in new tradition on top of it.
Oh no, not necessarily breaking tradition, but in the same way, like making the what am I trying to say? Making the rules less convoluted.
Yes and no. Like, I wouldn't say he made them more or less convoluted.
I'm also not saying he made them more or less convoluted. I'm saying that's what Brian Callen said.
Oh yeah, for sure. But also, I don't know if Brian Callen knows shit about shit, really.
Oh no, that's
I don't think he was raised by like weird Baptisty people.
Oh, I just remember why I mentioned Brian Callen. Oh,
yeah.
The reason I mentioned Brian Callen is because he also mentioned the interpretation of the meek shall inherit the earth, and I think that it's a bit of I think it's a bit of a misstep to classify the quote or the statement the meek shall inherit the earth as one encouraging people to be docile. You know what I mean?
Oh no, not docile, but like it definitely is like, hey, listen, if you don't fucking, I mean, because you can like read into it the very basic like realpolitik, like if you survive and if you are meek and multiply, right? Like if you don't worry about like murdering and killing people, and you focus on like selling goods and like infiltrating institutions of power, then in the long run, your kids, because you didn't like fight wars and shit, or like you picked the winning side every time you fought a war, your kids are gonna fucking like the idea of like international bankers and like merchants and stuff like that. Major power players.
I agree more so with that interpretation. Like I've heard it, interpreted. The interpretation I would say I most agree with is the idea that like the meek are not like what am I trying to say, like meek, downtrodden in like the traditional sense, right? Like the meek are those who have the ability to make conflict, right? The ability to wage war successfully, but choose not to, or at least choose to do so very judiciously, right? And like I like the idea of those being judicious about the conflict they create, being the ones who will, if you don't create multi-generational conflict in a foolhardy type of way, right, then you'll be more likely to survive multi-generationally.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's all like sexual selection stuff that people are just like I guess like once you establish like hard and fast rules, it's a little bit. A lot of it is just like once you establish like most of these rules are not followed to the T. They're like followed as they're advantageous. And so like when a lot of people say like God's calling us to do whatever, it's like a response to economic pressures or like social pressures primarily. It never is like out of the blue, like whatever. I don't know. It's weird because like there's so much that you can like not cherry pick, but like you can find pretty much anything at any time. You're basically just waiting for like a sequence of coincidences to justify a series of actions, or like justify making a series of actions, it gets a little weird though. Just because like so much of it is like you can quote any verse at any time to justify any tradition you want.
I don't know. I would say though that the Bible has like an overarching philosophy in a major. I think that would be hard to deny.
I don't think it would. I don't think it would.
You think?
Just because
I think it's very
just
hard
because
to
like it covers such a large span of time, and in that span of time, the culture shifts so much within like the people who are writing down the laws, like especially because it stems from tradition, and oral traditions are very prone to misinterpretation. I mean, as are written ones, because language changes. For the same reason, language changes, and so like, the usage of that language changes. But
I don't know. I think, I don't know. I think it would be hard. I think it is hard to argue with the idea that like, because I don't know. I think that like, regardless of changing influence on the aforementioned philosophy, to say that there's not like a more or less singular philosophy as within the Bible. I think that would be hard to argue with. Maybe singular isn't the right word, but
yeah, singular is definitely not the right word because it's not very cohesive.
I think generally, like if you break it up, Old Testament, New Testament, like the Old Testament, New Testament, like conflict thematically in a bunch of ways, but outside of that, I think it's pretty cohesive.
It just really isn't that cohesive. Like it's basically describing survival. A singular like tribe of people, and so like their tactics change over time in a pretty radical way. But so like if you want to start with like Genesis or whatever, it's basically just describing like the transition from hunter gathering to like to like whatever like planned agriculture, and so like that's the original sin or whatever. Yeah, we've talked about that. We talked about that. But then there's also like the transition of like what God is as a deity, because like when they're like the Israelites or whatever are like marching through the desert, they see like there's a pillar of smoke by day and a pillar of fire by night or whatever. But it's because like the mountain they're going to is like a volcano, like Mount Sinai is like an active volcano, and so following that, they're basically just like God takes the form of like natural phenomenon most of the time, but in like classic Judaism or whatever, he's more like a wind god, like the breath of life is a big theme, and so like there's an idea that like people are just made out of mud or something, and because I mean, which is a little bit true if you want to get into like the like we eat plants. Plants come from dirt. Plants give life or whatever. And like I guess mud is water and dirt, and you need water and plants to survive.
Sort of,
or like water and food to survive. So it's yeah. But
like, what are you saying about? Oh, wait, hold on.
Yeah. The idea that like God is like the. It's not. There is no real overarching philosophy. That's mostly.
Accurate. I think if there was an overarching philosophy, then to the extent that Christianity, like biblical Christianity, is important in modern day, I think that if there weren't an overarching philosophy, then people wouldn't be connected to the themes, right? Like people don't like incoherent stories.
I would disagree. I think people just. Most of it is people respect it because it's a tradition, like it's an old book.
I mean, maybe nowadays, but at the origin of the book.
And then most of those themes are applied. It's kind of like when you read Moby Dick or something. Like you might analyze it through a certain lens, and you could say that that's a theme, but a lot of it is like reader applied. And if you talk to the actual writer, they wouldn't be like, "Oh no! When I was talking about Ahab and Queequeg, I was really talking about homosexuality and male intimacy."
I don't think that's accurate either. I think that authors are definitely trying to say something. I think that if you asked a lot of authors what they were trying to say with their text, they would tell you that they were trying to say something specific, or at least that they were trying to say something, as opposed to I just wrote them this way. And also, I agree that a lot of the adherence to Christianity in the modern day comes out of the fact that it's like an old book. But I suppose people wouldn't follow Christianity today. Like, it wouldn't be a recognized.
And then if you're just talking about again, like much of the like a lot of the stories are influenced by other religions as well.
Oh no, I'm aware.
Like if you're talking about like Babylonian captivity might not even be the right word because Jews lived in Babylon. It's kind of hard to tell because people definitely like to write themselves as like, oh, I wasn't the richest person, and so I was therefore like the worst off, most oppressed group within this empire or whatever. And there's even like there's a bunch of debate over whether like whether the Jews actually built the pyramids or whatever, because like there's some weird stuff as far as I wish I could find the lectures that I had listened to about it, but like there was a bunch of like maybe not. Like I think the idea was like the Jews had attempted to conquer like Egypt at some point, but the Egyptians were so military and had such good agricultural like maintenance that they just kind of drove them out. They're like, no.
So I think, but I think even
and there's a lot of credit
traditions
being that like it's very hard to like determine what's myth and what's fact. And like I have an uncle who like he's super religious, but he doesn't believe like every word in the Bible is literally true, just because like he understands and recognizes that so much of it is like lost to time. Like if you burn a library, it's not like there's a PDF online until very recently, and even then,
this is
because
true.
there's a PDF online doesn't mean it's accessible to you.
Yeah,
it could just be like on a weird forum that nobody will ever find.
Yeah, but I still agree that there's not I still disagree that there's not an overarching philosophy.
What would you describe the overarching philosophy as?
I think it's the same. I don't know how I would.
Other than like
exactly
endure and survive. And thank God
I think it's
do.
just. I think it's I think to the extent that all philosophies are really like some flavor of endure and survive because that's the game that living organisms play. Like I think it's a culture specific endure and survive. Like the specific endure and survive that came out of like lower like
that didn't come out of a cohesive or coherent group geographically or culturally.
Well,
there are some vestiges. There are some vestiges of it that are maintained as a throughput, but even most of like the kosher practices change. Like if you're describing is your TV on?
Oh no! I forgot. We were like mid conversation.
Yeah, it's fair. We might just pick it up later because it's gonna be a little. You're gonna be a crazy person on this bus. I also can't hear you. Yeah. Like.
Yeah. Let's get on the
talking about dental hygiene because it's far more interesting and a far more personal subject than religious shit, I guess.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, do you want to pick that up even?
Yeah, we can pick it up. All
right, let's talk about the dental shippers.
But we're talking about dental anxiety. So for a while, I was flossing, right? And every time I'd floss, I'd pull out my fucking fillings.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, well, guess I'm just gonna brush. But also, I think there's like my parents were broke as shit when I was little because my mom was paying off her like master's degree student loans, and my dad was paying off his dog shit pastoral ministries degree loans, and and then they were just also trying to pay for housing and vehicles and all that shit, insurance, health insurance.
Like the cost of living,
the cost of living. So they were trying to get like dental work done for me and my sister. make sure that we go to the doctors. But like they would always like obviously like you can't cover all the shit, and I'm sure they spent money on a lot of bullshit stuff. Like if your money is tied up, don't be spending like money on landscaping. Fucking spend it, like just save it. Just save it. Fucking like it's not gonna improve the value of your home to put like a bunch of
like not dramatically enough to make that reasonable. You know what I mean? Like if you were going to do landscaping work and then your home's worth $1 million more in the relatively long term, like maybe do it, but don't do it if you already can't meet like your current like standard of living. You know what I mean?
Like it's like okay, it's like said homeless chick I was talking about before.
Yes.
She was like dropping money on like $30 records and like CBD vape pens. I'm like, yo. If you're in if you're in like homeless housing, if you're in like homeless housing rather than an apartment, like unless there's no like hard deadline on when you need to be out of there or something, for sure, don't be dropping your money on useless caca doo doo bullshit.
All your money should go. No. You need to find out how to have a place to live.
Yeah, for sure. Like don't be spending your money on like. Oh yeah, like a place to live is so important. And then also, I'm actually writing a paper for a class that's entirely devoted to that right now.
About
I have land dynamics. I have land dynamics and usage, and the focus for the class is housing deserts, which is not an official term, but it's like a similar concept to food deserts, except a little bit more difficult
about like
to pin
affordable
down.
Housing question.
It's a little bit more difficult to pin down, and I really kind of fucked myself on this project because almost everybody else is doing it in like groups of 4, and I'm all by my onesies on it.
Your onesies.
Yeah. I'm all by my onesies, and like a shithead I did. Like a shithead I picked Atlanta, because I was like, that's a place where there's like a lot. Because like, if you talk about poverty, it's super easy to find it if you just look at like the rural South, or like even most of the South. Like most of the wealth in the South is in like military institutions or cocaine. Like,
because I was gonna,
because there's like there's a historical like trade deficit between the South and the North, and then that was exacerbated by the loss of the Civil War. But then also like there's just a bunch of weird ass shit. Like agriculture is not a great basis for an economy because like.
Not really, no.
I mean, it's a necessary basis, but like...
you need agriculture in your society, period.
Yeah,
just like humans
if you want like a strong economy, like bargaining power-wise...
When you say agricultural, do you mean like the blanket term agriculture, or do you mean like rearing plants or rearing animals, et cetera, or just like the rearing of things, like the rearing of our food sources?
All of it. It's one of the least valuable forms of land usage. Because like... people take it for granted because they're like, no, I can just eat food. And while like there's some differentiation, like I can eat at expensive restaurants now that I'm whatever. For the most part, like people don't really think about it, like because they kind of just shop what's around. So like if you don't have a grocery store within walking distance or like driving distance, you're probably just going to go down to the corner store or whatever and get like a bag of chips and maybe like a carton or 2 of eggs because that's all they carry. But yeah, like convenience stores obviously don't have the ready supply chain behind them to provide like a lot of grocery items. But
this is true. Do you give me 1 second. I was gonna think about something.
But so Atlanta right now is having a pretty big issue
with housing deserts, right?
With housing deserts, but
can you explain to me exactly what housing deserts are? Like you said, they were weirder than food deserts, like harder to nail down.
They're weirder than food deserts because like with housing, like a lot of people commute, right? But at a certain point, the cost of housing is offset by the price of transportation. Yeah. So if you're talking about like a massive amount of commuters who all have to like buy cars and finance cars and get insurance for cars and drive like like your mom does, right? Like drive like
Oh yeah,
or did I guess like drive like 4 to
Yeah.
6 hours or some shit to get to
like
work.
daily. Yeah. Like
Yeah,
4 or
that's
more.
insane. That is insane. And
So
that's
as
a
a
little
like
bit of
so
a
can I
different example, but like
so like a housing desert is a place for like whatever reason does not have like housing that is like it's like an area made of things to do and places to work, but not affordable places to live.
it's basically like a metropolitan area hitting like a square cube law in like of in like size growth.
Okay,
So like
okay, that makes sense.
but it's not really that because it's a lot of developers trying to build like luxury housing because that's going to attract uh like rich kids basically, like rich kids and other like independently wealthy people, or
Yeah. People
not
with
even
dollars.
independently because there's nobody who's like really
Yeah, I was
independently
gonna say
wealthy.
who's independently wealthy. Like,
Like
did
you're
you
at least
find all the gold
dependent.
by yourself?
Yeah, like you're at least
Yeah.
dependent on all your consumers or whatever.
hmm Like
Dependent
so.
on just like raping
Oh yeah.
people hand over fist
Because
for like
I was
massive
like,
amounts of
I feel
money.
like the only way you'd be truly independently wealthy is somehow if you entirely independently discovered some type of like a rare material that's very valuable. Like if you found the gold by yourself, like you were born a baby, you crawled to the gold, and then somehow established ownership of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that's independent wealth. So it
Mhm.
probably doesn't exist except in extremely limiting cases.
Yeah, and yeah, and
Oh, but
so
yeah. Keep
and so
going.
like there's weird shit. Like obviously there's stuff you can do like public transportation. Fucking
hmm
great. If all you have to
I love
pay
it.
is like maybe like $400 for a bus pass for a year or some shit.
That
Um,
wouldn't be bad for a year.
yeah.
Because that's probably, let me think.
Or like a metro ticket. I don't know what those cost, but like they're still for the most part cheaper than owning a car and paying for
Yeah,
insurance and all
I
the
would.
up costs associated, and they're
I
public
Yeah. Like I
and
was
also
thinking,
good for
like
tourists.
$400 a year would be like I did some fast math in my head. $400 a year, like yearly for like a bus pass, that would be like a deal for me. You know what I mean? Like I'd
Hmm.
probably save at least like $50, like over the year.
Yeah, I think that's what like Kata does, but
Yeah, I don't know how much they are. Like I vibe with I like the idea of like I like it's the Metro card idea. Like in Pittsburgh, they're called Connect cards, but like just like a card you can load for all the transportation.
yeah, and so right now Atlanta's like building a pretty. It's not. It's I don't know what type of rail system it is, but they're trying to get some sort of like high speed rail system so that
Oh,
people who are
okay,
like
like
three or
their own
4 hours
bullet
away.
train.
Yeah, basically, so that like people outside because okay, so Atlanta has
Mm-hmm.
this. It actually ties into my rural sociology class because rural counties are defined as counties that have like less than 25% of commuters. Like
Okay.
if
Like
25% of your
75%
county
of the people live
commutes
there.
to
Yeah.
yeah, if 25% of the people in your county commute to a metropolitan statistical area for work, then your county is not a rural county. It's it's like a micropolitan commuter county or something else like that.
Wait, say that. Say that again. Say
So
that. Say that. Just say that sentence again.
it's like a micropolitan commuter county. So if less than 20 or yeah, if like 25% or more of your county
Mhm.
commutes to like say State College, not a great
Mhm.
example, but like 25% commuted to Pittsburgh or something.
Yeah,
I think
like
there's
to
a couple
work or
counties in
whatever.
between, but like all that stuff ties in. And so Atlanta in Georgia has like I want to say it's like 8 other counties connected to it
Oh,
by the metropolitan area. So like each of those counties has at least 25%, but much likely far more than that commuting. And that's just obviously dog shit, and you don't want that because in places like LA, like
and yeah.
it takes you like 8 hours to get somewhere by fucking
Oh,
car.
oh yeah. Like you're driving like you're gonna spend if you're gonna drive 2 miles, you might spend like an hour and a half in the car. Like
Yeah, exactly.
which is
dumb.
like, why doesn't
People
everyone
say
there
like
walk?
it's
I would walk on the side
overpopulation.
of the
It's
highway if I had to.
overpopulation. It's
If I thought it were going to take me like 45 minutes to get a mile away or something,
Yeah.
I would walk on the side of the fucking highway. Like,
or like bike or something.
oh yeah,
or like
no, just running past
with
cars.
a motorcycle. You're like, oh, okay, I might get hit and killed, but none of these cars are moving, so it's unlikely.
Oh no, exactly. I very much like the idea of running,
but probably not.
I very much like the idea of like running through still vehicles on like a highway, like getting out of it, like abandoning your vehicle and family. It's just running.
And
anyway.
like, I know that California is working on some kind of rail system, but like
they're letting Elon Musk build his tunnels, right?
Standard in Japan, right? Because Elon Musk's underground tunnels can go fuck themselves. We've discussed this before.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're just highways that are underground. It's like, it's not gonna work, bro. You gotta own a Tesla.
It seems like one
the parts.
No, it seems like one of those things where like helicopter pads in cities. You know what I mean? Like, if you're extraordinarily
it's literally
wealthy,
an example of how free market it doesn't work, I guess, because people are smart enough to go, oh, that's just a bullet train, except you forgot to put the bullet in your brain.
Yeah, that was a solid drive.
Yeah.
Oh no, I think people mostly give Elon Musk money because they like that he's interested in ideas, but they don't understand that should be a base human characteristic. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, they're like, oh, he does things. Whoa, like he thinks of cool things. Like, you can think.
I don't even know
too, right?
how much shit he's actually done. Right? Like, I think he's mostly like a manager type. Right? I don't know if he actually creates any technologies.
He made his money based on like
a bunch of it was like his parents' money, because they were like, South African.
He was never poor. Yeah.
There were some of like the whites in South Africa before desegregation.
But when he was 22, if I'm not mistaken, he sold like his 5% of whatever company he started for like $22 million. Maybe he was 24 actually. I forget when it was like $20 million essentially, and that's how he made his original
PayPal
money.
or?
No, I think it was like a PayPal. It was before that. But the moral of the story, though, is that I feel like he had to have had some original talent. Like, if he owned 5% of something that was worth, like, you know what I mean? Like, if he owned 5% of something that was worth like millions and millions of dollars, right? Then like, he must have had some skill originally. He's not like, but his thing isn't that he's a scientist.
Oh
like,
my
I'm not
God.
saying
No. He has a degree in economics from UPenn, Wharton. And a degree in physics, but like, okay, and then he went to Stanford.
Like a master's?
Yeah, he got his PhD in applied physics and material sciences. But
Oh, Okay, so he's real. All right, he's real.
He's kind of real, but also like.
So I think, but hear me out. Anyone can be, not if you put in the time, you can be like a real scientist, a real artist, etc., etc. Like, if you put in the time, you can change the world, right? So why not just put in the time and then make the world how you want it to be, instead of supporting someone else doing something interesting? You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of an argument against creators, which is listen to it. But you know what I'm trying to say, right? I think it's fucking weird. Can we get back to talking about how Atlanta is gonna make their own bullet train system?
Yeah, there's a bunch of problems because the goal of it was like, oh, we have all these poor blacks because, like, historically, obviously, there's some ramifications of like Jim Crow and shit where there was no lending given to black people, and then when they did give lending to black people, it was like, hey, listen, dog, listen. All you whites living in those neighborhoods, hey, all the blacks are moving in. You got to sell your homes because the home values are going to depreciate. You got to sell your house because all the home values are going to depreciate. Because we're not going to value your home because the blacks are moving in. Like the blacks and the Mexicans, like, and so
when people are coming,
there's this sort of like, because like home value is very artificial if you're not talking about material cost.
Exactly. Or like complexity of design, like,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. Like if your home's just a normal ass house, like it's, or like maybe geography in certain cases, like, you know what I mean? But like outside of those specific things, like those specific very quantifiable things, I feel like it's bullshit.
Oh yeah, you want your house like on the top of a hill so that it
Yeah.
doesn't get flooded by rainwater. That's about it.
Exactly.
And then you want to give the rainwater area to a local school district as a tax write-off.
Definitely. Like if you're, so what I believe what we're saying is that like if you live in a house that costs, like if you live in a house that's made of wood and your neighbors have a house made of wood also and they're the same height and like,
oh yeah, that's big too.
you know what I mean? They're worth about the same amount. Like,
oh yeah, but the thing is, right? So like land speculators, like real estate developers and shit, none of them want to build houses because houses are like a medium, like they're a very conservative way to build your wealth. Like conservative in the sense that you can't return like 30% profit on that. You have to go like with like 2%, 2.5% growth over time. And
I was in a loud room for a sec. My bad.
And then if there aren't like good property taxes or something to fund like the local school districts, like I mean, because you have to go down to like the basic consumer decisions like distance from your job and like locality to good like parks and school districts.
Resources.
Yeah, like places where people want to fucking live.
Yeah.
And so like all you see is massive like basically tenement housing that costs far more to rent than most people's mortgages are. Like most people's mortgages are like $600 a month. Like it's not much.
Like most people, when you say most people, give me like a percentage.
I don't fucking know, but like
more than half.
I don't know. It probably depends on the locality again, but like not a New York City mortgage, but like the idea is that you get like a 30-year mortgage or something, and you just pay for your house like the entire time you're working.
Okay.
At like a lower,
so
like at a fixed low interest rate.
So it's like, so is that? It seems essentially like the same thing as like, what am I trying to say? You're agreeing to rent a much larger property. No, hold on. I hate this sentence.
Oh, and I'll explain some other shit too, right?
Yeah, no,
Just
I have a really good.
So if you don't have a formal will, when you die, your property just gets divided up equally among your surviving relatives. Like, I mean, I think it obviously just goes to like your spouse if they're still alive. But if like both your parents die and they don't have formal wills, then every single person, like among their offspring,
like
their children or whatever, gets like it just gets divided equally amongst them, and so
so like if there's 7 of you, each of you get a 7
or some shit. Yeah. And then like the same shit happens if the next person dies. Like the next generation of people die without doing anything with that land, and so it just keeps getting divided up. And then like there are laws that are like literally all you have to do to sell the land is like 1 or 2 people. Like it doesn't. You don't have to have a majority sharehold of the land to like sell it. So like one person can sell like a fraction of the land to a developer, and then pretty much everybody else has to sell the land too, because like it's divided amongst them, but it's not like they have to sell the whole thing because it's like one contiguous plot or some shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like they each like it's like there's a cake in a room, or 8 people in the room, right? And they're all like, "Yo, we all each own 1/8 of this cake," and then someone hands someone else the cake. Like
someone goes like, "Hey, I can't divide up this cake, but I can give you my slice, which is part of the whole cake."
Exactly.
Like,
you're gonna have to take the whole thing to get my slice.
But like,
yeah. Like you're gonna have to take the whole thing to get my slice, but you could have my slice anyway.
And that's like the big problem with like Indian reservations and shit is that like there's not a lot of formal wills because a lot of those people like it's cycles of poverty. because
Yeah.
like Native Americans don't fucking trust lawyers for the most part, because how many lawyers are Native American? Like, 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 or like are even versed on like Native American like tribe issues? Not a fucking lot.
Yeah. There are too many fucking laws. I know we've talked about that before, but there are too many laws. Anyway.
Oh, and they're all written by like landowners with like fucking
like we like
massive political
because
capital.
I feel like I would never go to law school because you can read the law on the internet. You know what I mean? And
yeah, for sure. I do appreciate people who go to law school just to say like it's all bullshit. Let's scrap it and make new laws.
I'm not saying like law school isn't necessarily worth it, right? But I think that law school makes you it makes you like a strong arguer. You know what I mean? Like law schools make terrifying arguers that happen to know a lot about the law. You know what I mean? And I think I can do those things on my own. You know what I mean? Like I think I can happen to know a lot about the law on my own, and then as a virtue of other things become a terrifying arguer, or at least convincing enough. But anyway, oh, did you? Can we finish the point about we keep getting sidetracked from the point about the Atlanta bullet train thing or Atlanta's housing?
Oh no, I was reading like a whole thing from a
a
dude named Dan Immergluck, who I think is like one of he might be like the mayor of some part of Atlanta, maybe the whole thing. He's like, but his whole focus is like urban development. But it's such like you need like a fucking team of people to effectively target that.
How many?
Like I have no idea. Like, but Atlanta has like
5.
It has like nearly 7 million people who rely on the metropolitan area for their income. So like,
so they really do. They have to. Yeah.
Like you can't effectively implement policies that target 7 million people without looking at like state, local, and like federal, state, and municipal laws. And like that's really where like the concept of like the idea that states are the laboratories of democracy is not necessarily accurate, because for the most part they're like the laboratories of like landowning speculators that fucking develop the land and like move from state to state based on like
it's more.
I don't like the way that you're implementing policies for the betterment of mankind. I'm going to jump to a state where it doesn't matter.
It seems more so like instead of they're not. Yeah, I think it would be inaccurate to say, like based on the way you laid it out, it would be inaccurate to say that they are like the laboratories of democracy, right? Because it's less like the law changes in like states of like idiosyncratic laws that result in idiosyncratic state ecosystems, like economic ecosystems. It's more like developers like change what the state is like, right? That like results in a change in the economy.
Oh yeah, it's a race to the bottom.
Pressure on the law.
It's a race to the bottom in the biggest way. They go for like the big issues like land, like quantity of land and population size, because those are things like market size and real estate potential. So like land investment potential. But like if you own all the land, like the idea of land ownership is a little bit bullshit to begin with. Especially when you talk about like access to like public utilities like water treatment. It's like, oh no, we all own land.
Is not real.
Yeah.
Oh no, exactly. Like
it's more like a lifetime rental anyway.
Exactly. It's just like my shit's here. Like, and I'm more powerful than you economically. Like, like, what am I trying to say? But to like point at the ground and say this is mine, and objectively, like in a real way, it's hilarious. It's a hilarious thing to do.
Yeah. So yeah,
but
yeah. My program is like SEED, which is like Community Environment Economic Development, and I think that this class is trying to get us to specialize in like land dynamics and usage, which makes sense because it is like the issue that from which all other issues stem is like.
How so? Well, hold on.
Yeah, who owns the land? How are we going to use it? That's the the biggest fucking factor. Like,
I one of them. I guess.
Yeah.
Generally, because I guess some like I don't know. I imagine like I was thinking about at the beginning of society, and I would say that like it's possible that the who in who owns the land is nobody, I suppose, and that like affords a whole bunch of possibilities.
Oh yeah, and then the idea of like, so like, I don't love the fact that I have to like, but like this is what like the like like the Nazis were talking about with like the international Jew or whatever.
Mhm.
Like, obviously they were wrong. It's not just Jewish people, but like internationals, it's the same principle. Like, you have fucking these massive like, they're not even like really, they're not free market because they don't want competition, and they don't want like a better solution to implement like higher productive capacity. It's like
economic predators.
It's the same people who have like I would not necessarily be opposed to like a death tax of 100% if it went into making like making sure we actually had like a meritocracy system where like education education.
Well, explain to me what a death tax is.
Oh, like, we just take all the money when you fucking die. Like,
okay. Like when you die, what you have
property
goes back
holdings.
To the
state. Yeah. And like all property has to be owned by like individuals. It can't be held by like international holdings companies or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I definitely like the idea. I definitely like the idea that like if you aren't an American citizen, you can't fucking own American land. Like, unless you're like in the citizenship process applying to be a permanent resident or some shit.
Yeah, etc. Okay.
Because it seems like you're just a fippy dippy person who doesn't want to pick a spot and stay there. Like,
so explain to me how like these principles would create a meritocracy.
if you funnel all the money like directly into like food, housing, healthcare, making sure that everybody's like physiological baseline is as like as
lower end of the hierarchy of needs.
Yeah. Take care of that. Education, fucking great. That's investment. That's economic investment.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that like if like death tax of 100%, right? Like only American citizens can own American land, etc. Like it's got to be owned by an individual, etc. All these things would, like they would put as much money into the state as possible and allow the state to function as like a mechanism that serves to support everybody's like baseline needs more effectively. And
you're talking about like
to compete more effectively, and that would be
when you're talking about like what privileges does my country give me? It's like, oh, okay. Let's talk about like not needing, like, basically not escaping the sort of the system of whatever I don't know what you'd call it, like not escaping natural selection or whatever, but like realizing hey, we don't live in the fucking woods.
Exactly. Like
without butt ass naked, we aren't trying to survive the winter. Like, not really.
Like, or I like the idea of like a government that like is like, yeah, no, we take all your money when you die, and you like et cetera, right? But as a result, like everyone, like 90% of our citizens are perfectly fed, so like the average IQ in our country, like the low end of the IQ distribution is like 115 now. Like,
yeah, I'd be a big fan of like either that or like a system, like, because you could have a cultural system that has that principle, like, oh no, parents don't give any money to their kids, like or like every parent spends about the same amount of money on their kids.
Like,
oh yeah, you better figure that shit out by then.
Oh no, exactly. I do think I think it's kind of fair, because obviously there will still be like, in an ideal society, there's still like support systems in place for like orphans, widows, et cetera.
Oh, right? And then like we already have like a
definitely you got like if
you're blind, you don't have to work a day in your life, because we're like, oh, you're blind. There's no expectation that you can contribute to the economy.
I don't know about that. Blind people can do stuff. Like you.
Oh no, they can, but like you can also just collect disability and like live at home and eat food, because we're like, oh yeah, no. It's not really your fault. You're blind for the most part, unless you did it yourself.
Yeah, but I don't think that should be like. I think we should. I think you should encourage everyone in society to give as much to society as they possibly can. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like,
Oh, for sure.
like,
We have those
you know what I
systems
mean?
too.
Like, yeah, no, but like, yeah, like sort of how like. Going back to Utopia, right? Like how the people who like certain disabilities are like.
Oh yeah, people
They're
with like
they're
trisomy 21.
but they're paid.
Yeah.
I feel like they're like on Utopia. They would have, if you were like born blind, because they definitely have Braille on Utopia, right? Well, like if you were like somehow born blind, they would like figure out Braille and then they would just educate you as like a learned person. You know what I mean? Because you can still experiment.
Oh
With
yeah, I've
ideas
heard some
while
blind people talk, and like assuming you don't have any cognitive disabilities as a result of it, like assuming it isn't comorbid with some other like physiological disability or something.
Like if it were
like you're
like
not
caused
like
by an injury, yeah. So it's not like your brain's messed up. It's just that you can't see.
oh yeah. If you just have like visual cortex impairment and you don't have like I don't
like
know
any other type of degeneration.
Yeah, you don't have like a heart condition or like or like some kind of brain cancer or some shit.
Yeah.
But
there's actually there's this one YouTube channel with this blind dude who he's like a machinist. I think he works wood. I haven't watched his videos, but I heard about him. Like one of the main reasons, like generally speaking, I would be super afraid of going blind, but I wouldn't be able to build things as effectively, or at least I'd have to figure out how to do it differently.
Yeah, I've heard basically from blind people that they feel like on some level they're more like computers because like they're just not just input output machines, but like if you have to rely on like your ears and what other people are telling you.
Not necessarily. Like you can still, you can.
Oh yeah, you can
smell,
still,
you can touch.
Yeah. Of course.
You just have to figure out how to spatially reason again. That's the main thing. Like spatial reasoning, like seeing is very useful. It's super duper useful.
Oh yeah, but yeah, if you're describing like how it moves through space, you kind of have to take somebody else's word for it because you don't have like, the depth perception to see that phenomenon. It establishes some kind of learning curve. But I think that you could probably process like logical like phenomenon on some level a little bit differently.
Well, like when you say logical phenomena, do you mean like solving problems that require you to imagine objects visually?
No.
Or do you mean just like talking about ideas?
I mean like basically like being a plug and play calculator as of a person. Again, that's just what I've heard, and it could have just been the specific person.
Oh yeah,
I guess it's most likely just.
I'm struggling with the plug and play calculator analogy. You know,
you can just gouge out your eyes and see what I mean, but like
no, because I'm closing my eyes, right? And like the world still has like a lot of depth. Like it's definitely a different experience, right? But I still know things are here, right? And I imagine to a certain extent that's because I can imagine the world around me even when I can't see it. But my ability to imagine the world to a certain level of definition is probably based on the fact that I can see, or at least before I close my eyes, I could see and have been seeing for a long time. So I'm wondering.
Quentin Tarantino moment. I had a trip where I was just I was like, we're fucking perception worms. We're running an AI that makes because like there's no real way to like really. Like the idea that this could all just be a simulation or something. Like we could all just be in a fucking warehouse, right? And like the warehouse has.
There's no way to know. I guess
there's no way to know, really.
Yeah. So like no.
Yeah.
Because yeah. It's like like
it could just be
that's like just to the extent that we do, because there's literally no way to know.
Yeah, like we could be like some kind of bacteria or something, and this is just like our perception. Like on the cosmic scale, how do we know that we're not just like part of some cell in some body, and that like
the
way our universe operates is just the way that cells operate within that life form or like that organism.
Oh yeah, no, like more likely than not, like I don't know, like if there were like life in the universe that we just haven't discovered in like let's say conscious life in like a major way, then I would say that I would say that we are just smaller units of a larger universal ecosystem. Until then, I think I would definitely like until then, I would probably hold back on going that far out. But I definitely would agree with the analogy or with the perception of the human species as a superorganism. You know what I mean? Especially as globalization increases. Like the smaller the world gets, the more so we act like one thing.
Mm-hmm. Like
But,
the idea of like universal consciousness is like there are multiple universes and they can totally see each other. and they have friends and they have enemies. Like I think that idea is fucking hilarious. But they all operate like within a pretty narrow band of physiological difference.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that the.
Oh yeah, I don't think that that's necessarily accurate, but I think it, I think it is a
no. I was
thought
trying to think about.
to like
No, I was going to say,
bit.
like, yeah. No, I was just thinking about that idea, and I think I was going to say something like that seems like a phenomena of the mind, right? That seems like a metaphysical as opposed to a physical reality, and I don't know that the metaphysical has existed for long enough, as I would argue the metaphysical arises from organisms that can perceive, right? Like if you can see, right, then you can create an abstraction of the world that you like. You're creating an abstraction of the patterns of the world and using that to map, like, and you're mapping that to the patterns of your body moving physically. You know what I mean? Like you're just like a chunk of material that's changing shape in response to the environment, right? And then the act of seeing allows you to transmute like the environment into a conception, into like an idea, right? So I feel like if there was some type of universal consciousness, it would be like an idea organism. And I don't think, in a weird metaphysical way, that sort of thing would have had time to evolve yet. You know what I mean? To the extent
Sure. I really like maybe we're just like a universal fetus.
This was.
I definitely like the idea, though.
I feel like
at least on the scale of.
I feel like one of Charles Manson's goons. I feel like this is what
for sure, for sure. That's what I feel like. But he was kind of, like, you know, like the idea of like the biosphere or something is like like the entire Earth is like an interconnected ecosystem. I think it's insane that like I think for sure humans contribute to a decrease in biodiversity, but I think at the same time, same time that biodiversity is like for like transportation is one of the biggest causes for lack in biodiversity, or like because like invasive species
you have to go through
are just invasive because they're radically successful in environments where they're not native.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like they are capable of entering another animal's niche and using it more effectively than they can.
Are you familiar with like Kurzgesagt?
I've seen that YouTube channel. I've seen like a couple of them.
I was watching this one video from them about. Oh, they also have like a pretty good. I'll send you both of these.
You know what's a software that people would pay a lot of money for?
What?
If you could just talk into it and it would make like Kurzgesagt style animated graphics, like Crash Course's Thought Bubble. If you could just talk into that sort of thing, people would pay millions of dollars for that. Like an AI that just generates pictures for you. Like,
yeah. So yeah, I was watching this video on like mega colonies of ants, and so like basically this one species of ant was super. I mean, you can just watch the video because it's not long. It's infotainment, so it's rather brief. But like they were basically like this ant was fighting itself in like South America until humans came in and introduced like other kinds of ants and shit. And then like the ants were like, oh okay, responding to this external threat. Oh yeah, no, there was a whole bunch of weird shit. Like they killed most of their queens, and so I think all the surviving ants had like the same genotype that was like a non-competition clause or something between them.
Yeah.
And then they hitched a ride on like boats, and oh yeah, I think that was the insight for it. Like they were brought to a new environment by like ships and planes and stuff. And then once they were in new environments, the ants that like had queens that created like competitive, like just the idea that ants, like the ants that stick together will stay alive longer because they'll kill all the ants that compete with them that are part of like the same type or like the same species or family, I guess. I don't know. But I can't describe it as eloquently because I've only seen it. But and then like the other one was the fippy dippy idea of universal consciousness, but it's a fun thought video, I guess. Thought experiment is a weird word.
Are wild.
Thought experiment is a weird term to use because there are no.
If you document them well.
Yeah, thought experiment is not like there. What are your control variables and what hypothesis are you testing? But,
I think you can perform like useful thought experiments. Like,
oh sure.
And I think physicists' thought experiments are very well documented, and they're also good physicists, right? So, but I think that you can, and also there's there's this online comic called, or it's not like a comic, it's like a blog called XKCD, where he does like what if questions and whatnot, right? Like from like pop culture and everything, and he like analyzes them like scientifically. And so I think that, and like what are those but thought experiments, right? Because they're just doing math, right? So it's just like a story plus back of the envelope calculations. So I think that if you document your thought experiments, then they could be of note, but it's also just a weird term for imagining things. It's just I was daydreaming. Daydreaming and thought experimentation are essentially the same. Hold on. John? I can't hear you at the moment. I should get some.